Jack and I had an on and off relationship for 3 years. In public, he would hold me affectionately, calling me his wife sweetly. But in private, he treated me like trash, passionately kissing his first love in front of me. I didn't make a scene, I simply signed the separation papers I had prepared long ago. But he panicked, frantically searching for me everywhere. A year later, I attended a banquet in the arms of his archenemy. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes like a pleading little dog. "Anna, have you really given up on me?" Chapter 1. Jack threw a party at a countryside villa, inviting the elite of the social circle. I, his wife, wasn't invited. I was tricked into going by one of his friends, only to find out that the party was to welcome his first love, Laura, back. Jack stood in the crowd with Laura, being urged to drink a toast together. After they drank, the party reached a new height of excitement. People called her sister-in-law and shouted for them to kiss. Some even teased. "Jack, when are you inviting us to your wedding banquet? We've waited too long." "Yeah, Jack, when are you going to separate from your wife and give Laura a proper title? You don't love your wife anyway." Seeing Jack not denying or opposing, the crowd only got bolder. "She thinks marrying Jack means we'll accept her as our sister-in-law. Our sister-in-law can only be Laura." Laura blushed, shyly snuggling into Jack's arms like a little girl. My sudden appearance brought a touch of awkwardness to the lively party. I was the one legally married to Jack, yet standing there, I felt like the third wheel ruining someone else's relationship. Across the crowd, Laura's gaze met mine, filled with unwillingness. But in the next second, as the crowd noticed me, she enthusiastically waved at me like a hostess. "Anna, did you come to welcome me back too?" Her tone was playful and cheerful. Jack's smile instantly vanished, his long eyes narrowing as he looked at me. He was angry. Was he blaming me for disrupting their fun? Before I could react, he grabbed my hand and dragged me out, not caring about the wound on my wrist that reopened from the pull. The pain turned my face pale, and I almost lost my balance in my heels. "Who allowed you to come here?" Looking at the sticky blood on my hand, I asked him. "Jack, aren't you afraid Grandpa will find out you brought her back? Don't use Grandpa to pressure me. Do you think I'm still afraid? I'm no longer the Jack of 3 years ago who was manipulated by others. No one can take her away from me again. If you still want to remain Mrs. Jack peacefully, I advise you to mind your own business and not try any tricks in front of me." My heart felt like it was being gnawed by countless ants, the pain piercing through me. Despite already knowing the answer, I couldn't help but ask. "Jack, in these 3 years of marriage, have you ever loved me?" Before he could answer, a silver bell-like voice chimed in. "Anna, Jack, are you two keeping secrets from me?" I hid my hand behind me. "Anna, are you feeling unwell? Your face is so pale." He seemed afraid I might say something to hurt her and hurriedly explained. "She's fine, just pretending to be pitiful to gain sympathy. It's so cold outside. Why didn't you wear a coat? You'll catch a cold," Jack said as he took off his coat to drape over her shoulders, affectionately tapping her forehead. Out of Jack's sight, she shot me a provocative glance. Later, they entered the party hand in hand while I was thrown out by the security he had called. Walking alone on the dark, deserted road, I remembered our 3rd wedding anniversary. That day, I had reserved a table at a restaurant early, wearing my best makeup and most fitting clothes. But I waited and waited until the restaurant closed. He never showed up. I called him over 20 times, each time hearing the same mechanical voice. "The number you dialed is not reachable. Please try again later." I called his assistant, who happily asked, "Mrs. Jack, do you like the gift Mr. Jack prepared? The necklace you wanted 3 months ago at the auction and your favorite roses. Mr. Jack couldn't wait to find you at noon." Just then, a text message notification sounded. A trending video showed a handsome couple passionately kissing at a busy airport. My hands trembled as I clicked on it. The comments were filled with envy and blessings. "The guy is noble, the girl is elegant. They're so well matched." I was at the airport. The guy was holding a big bouquet of roses, his eyes full of love. Where can you find such a guy? Bow down and pray to get a guy like this. Before I die, I want a love like this too. Don't move. I'm bringing the marriage registry. Get married right there. Blessings forever. I stared at it for a long time, tears blurring my carefully applied makeup. Compared to his legally wedded wife, who was more important to him, was clear as day. I remembered asking him the day before. Shall we have dinner together tomorrow? He gave me a disdainful look. What trick are you up to now? Feeling hurt, I still said, tomorrow is our 3rd anniversary. He coldly stared at me. What makes you think I'd want to celebrate the worst day of my life? The day my beloved left me, and I married someone I despise. What's there to celebrate? I forced a smile and said hoarsely, didn't you want a separation? Let's have dinner, and I'll sign the papers. I've heard that too many times. No wonder he would say that. In 3 years of marriage, he had brought it up countless times, but I always avoided it. There were times my parents threatened me with separation to get his help with their business. The lure of separation was too strong for him to resist, he always agreed. Yet, in the end, as always, I never got to see him. He broke his promise again. This happened countless times over 3 years. The one who was let down, refused, and left behind was always me. But I refused to give up. Before Laura returned, I could deceive myself into thinking that being married and by his side would eventually make him see me and fall for me. But today, I realized that between Jack and me lay insurmountable misunderstandings and endless gaps. The biggest obstacle was Laura. As long as she was around, Jack would never see me. Is such a marriage really worth it? Chapter 2. I met Jack in college. He was the star of our school. Not only was he excellent in his studies and handsome, but he also came from a wealthy family. Watching him speak confidently on stage, shining like a star, was mesmerizing. Like many others, I couldn't help but fall for him. But I wasn't bold enough to confess, so I kept my feelings hidden deep inside. Occasionally, we'd run into each other at events, but I'd only stand far away, not daring to get close. Even so, catching a glimpse of him each day would leave me elated for a long time. Everyone said a high-profile guy like him had no emotions and was unattainable for ordinary people. Until one day, someone captured him in a quiet corner of the campus, awkwardly taking out a prepared gift and holding a delicate girl, gently coaxing her, stroking her soft hair, and kissing her cheek. That's when I realized he wasn't as cold as he appeared. He had someone who moved his heart. But that person wasn't me, it was our department's belle, Laura. Their video stayed on the school's website for days. For a long time, people kept updating their latest news. For someone with a secret crush and low self-esteem like me, it was torture. I forced myself to do many things to push him out of my life. It worked, but barely. Later, rumors spread that Jack and Laura's passionate love would end with a marriage certificate by graduation. But in the end, they didn't end up together. Laura went abroad, and Jack took over the family business. The reasons for their breakup varied. Some said Laura fell for someone else, others said their family backgrounds were too different. I saw him again in a hotel suite. That day, my father and stepmother tried to give me to a famous real estate tycoon to gain resources. They got me drunk, leaving me to face several greasy, middle-aged men. I escaped but didn't get away completely, ending up in bed with a drugged Jack. In the heat of the moment, he kept calling out, "Laura, Laura." While I was in pain and weak, he used me and tossed me aside like a rag. The next morning, the noise of door knocking woke me up. Before I could fully wake up, a group of reporters rushed in, taking pictures. The incident made headlines, and under pressure, he married me. I took the opportunity to use his influence to escape my leech-like family. Chapter 3. Although our marriage started disgracefully, I was still overjoyed. My youthful crush had finally come true. I liked him, very much. I clumsily tried to learn all his preferences. He didn't like onions or garlic, preferred light foods, liked steak medium rare, was allergic to mangoes, had a favorite Western restaurant, and a favorite clothing brand. I wanted to share many things with him every day but was afraid he'd find me annoying. I'd type and delete messages repeatedly, pondering over them. Even if he didn't reply, I didn't mind. When he was sick, I was more anxious than he was, preparing his medication in advance. Even when my period pain made me faint, I never complained. I went to the hospital alone for surgeries and illnesses, knowing he was busy, so I stayed strong, never causing trouble for him. But in his eyes, my illnesses were mere acts to gain pity. He thought everything I did was to get money from him to help my father fill financial gaps. He even saw me as a promiscuous woman who'd sell her body for benefits. He always spoke to me harshly. I remembered when we first got married, we had a brief period of harmony, treating each other with respect. I didn't know when things started to deteriorate. Perhaps it began when my stepmother came to see me, saying, "I underestimated you, using the media to make him marry you. What would he think if he knew you orchestrated those people? Didn't you tell Jack that his ex-girlfriend came to see him on your wedding day?" That night, he sat on the couch, blending into the darkness. As soon as I opened the door, a vase flew at me. Shards of glass covered the floor. The carefully chosen furniture and decorations were shattered. He grabbed my neck, demanding if it was true. I felt wronged, wanting to cry, but could only look at him helplessly. He knew I didn't orchestrate the media, yet he took his anger out on me, likely upset that I didn't tell him Laura came looking for him. I wanted to tell him, but his grandfather had forbidden it. He had worked hard to separate them, not wanting more trouble. I was curious until I saw Jack's father with a charming woman who resembled Laura. That's when I understood why his grandfather wanted them apart. A relationship between step-siblings would be a laughingstock, especially with Jack as the CEO of Lee Group. As my breath grew shallow and I couldn't struggle free, I silently bore his anger. He needed a punching bag, and I was it. The drama ended only when he kicked me out of the villa at midnight. Without a phone or money, I stood outside all night in the suburbs. I thought marrying Jack meant having my own home, free from others' bullying. But I was wrong. He didn't want to build a home with me or share his life with me. In 3 years of marriage, I never regretted loving him. Love is love, and once you fall, you love passionately, even if you cry alone in the dark, waking up to a bright morning. But looking back, I realized this love made me lose myself. From Jack, I received only humiliation, hurt, and rejection. I began to doubt myself, taking sleeping pills and antidepressants, even developing self-harming tendencies. My body bore countless scars. But today, I finally understood. Jack, I won't love you anymore. 4 years of secret love and 3 years of marriage end today. Chapter 4. I took out the separation papers from my bag and signed them. Returning to the villa, I packed my things and went back to the apartment I rented before marriage, grateful I hadn't canceled the lease. The next day, I applied to expand my company's overseas business. All that was left was the separation certificate. I called him, but as usual, couldn't reach him. Unable to contact him, I sent the signed separation papers to his company. He called me a week later, likely not having been home all week. "Anna, what are you up to now? I don't have time for your games." "What? Did you get smarter and stop throwing yourself at others? Or does your father need investment for a new project? Planning everything and pretending to love me. Are you trying to play innocent? You're a disgrace to the word love." To him, everything I did had ulterior motives. But this time, he was wrong. I only wanted a separation. "Mr. Jack, didn't you see? I signed the separation papers you gave me. You kept it?" I didn't answer, continuing. "If you have any issues with the agreement, you can have your lawyer draft a new one. If you think I'm getting too much, we can discuss it again. I don't need the car, but I want the house and shares. If there's no problem, we can get the separation certificate after the cooling off period." The other end was silent for so long I thought he'd hung up. "Are you serious?" "Of course. I'm making room for Laura voluntarily. You don't need to thank me. If you feel grateful, you can give me more compensation. If you don't believe me, I can swear. I swear I'll separate from Jack this time, and if I don't then..." I didn't finish the sentence as he hurriedly interrupted, his voice sounding panicked. Anna, think carefully. Without me, who will support you? Don't come crawling back like a dog, begging me." The call ended abruptly. Looking at the gray sky, I was determined to leave him. Chapter 5. Returning home late from work, I received a call from Jack. In the past, I could go months without hearing from him, always needing to check his schedule through his assistant. "Anna, you're getting bold, not coming home so late. I moved out a week ago." The other end was silent for a minute. "If you leave now, don't come back." "Okay. When will you take your trash?" "Throw it away. I don't need it." "Found a new sugar daddy already?" "I underestimated your speed in finding someone new." This man was strange. He had pushed for the separation, and now that I agreed, he had so many excuses. "Jack, if I remember correctly, you've always been the one asking for a separation. I'm just agreeing now. Or were your words just for show? Do you not really want a separation? Or have you fallen for me?" Something I said must have struck a nerve, as he started yelling. "You? Love? Even if I loved a stray cat or dog, I'd never love you." Yes, anyone but me. The wall I had built crumbled again. "A separation is what you wanted. Don't regret it." I calmed my mind, determined. "I won't." Once I decided to say goodbye, I would no longer hesitate. I threw myself into work, working late into the night, leaving no time for overthinking. With the doctor's medication and counseling, I was much better. During this time, Jack's assistant contacted me several times, asking about his medication for stomach pain, picking him up drunk, and ordering lunch for him. I used to prepare everything in advance, even if he always looked displeased. But now, none of it mattered to me. I replied indifferently. "If he's sick, see a doctor. If he's drunk, send him to Laura. As for food, ask him, not me." Once, like many women, I cooked for my loved one. Seeing him finish the meal I prepared gave me a sense of accomplishment. Until one day, delivering documents to his office, I found my meals tossed in the trash. I never cooked for him again. I saw him and Laura in the news several times, their photos on social media, holding hands, captioned, "Lucky to reunite with you. A lifetime with you is enough." I liked their post and wished them well. But the post was deleted the next second. Chapter 6. Soon, my phone's reminder alerted me that it was time for the appointment with Jack. A few days ago, I had informed his assistant in advance to prevent him from forgetting, given how often he had stood me up. Even with all my precautions, I still waited at the Civil Affairs office for 3 hours. The man who prided himself on his punctuality had never been on time for me. It was understandable, I had never truly been in his heart, always an afterthought in his eyes. As the staff prepared to leave for the day, I grew anxious, pleading with them to stay a little longer. Jack stood silently nearby, dressed in polished shoes, watching quietly. Biting his words through clenched teeth, he said, "There's no need to rush. I wouldn't miss such a good opportunity to get rid of you." I glanced at him. His usually impeccable clothes were disheveled, and there were faint kiss marks on his neck. "You should have come earlier," I said. This way, I wouldn't have had to change my flight and disrupt my schedule. The process went smoothly. Watching the staff stamp the documents, I felt a pang of sadness. 7 years of my youth, all tied to Jack, were finally coming to an end. From this moment on, I was reborn. I had a right to pursue my own dreams and embrace myself, rather than being entangled in love and revolving around one person. Such a life would only narrow my path. It took me 7 years to understand this. I hurried out of the Civil Affairs office as dusk approached. By Jack's car stood a beautiful figure, her head held high, as if to challenge me. No wonder he made me wait so long. I picked up my phone and sent a message. Jack, following behind me, stepped forward. "I'm waiting for the day you come crawling back to beg me." I simply shook my head. "No, I won't." I even congratulated him, wishing him and his beloved happiness after all these years. His brows furrowed and his face turned cold as he looked at me. "Anna, you..." I had no interest in hearing what he had to say because a very flamboyant man caught my attention. With perfect hair and makeup, a well-tailored suit, and a handsome face, he approached me with a large bouquet of roses, looking as if he owned the world. He pulled me into his arms, congratulating me on my escape and new beginning. It was almost as if he was about to set off fireworks. This man was my friend and boss, also Jack's arch-enemy Sam. Jack's face turned ashen. "So this is the sugar daddy you've latched onto. Your taste is as poor as ever." Sam smirked. "I completely agree. How else would Anna have fallen for a piece of trash like you?" I once doubted she had been possessed. A handsome guy like me standing right in front of her, and she didn't even notice. 7 years wasted on such a disappointing person. I should take her to an eye doctor to get her eyes cleaned. I quickly covered Sam's mouth, not knowing what outrageous thing he might say next. I also didn't want Jack to know that I had secretly loved him since college. Sam, leveraging his height, freed himself from my grasp. "I've loved Anna for 7 years, and now she's finally mine." He planted a kiss on my cheek, flaunting it in front of Jack. Jack's face turned visibly dark, his gaze towards Sam like a lion ready to pounce on its prey. "Pathetic," he muttered, shoving me as he walked away. Once they were gone, I playfully hit Sam. "You drama king. It's a pity you're not in showbiz." He dodged, laughing. "Anna, how much foundation did you put on?" My lips turned white from the kiss. "Sam, you brat. Anna, if we don't head to the airport now, we'll miss our flight." Chapter 7. I met Sam at the orphanage. I was the product of my father's affair, and my mother died when I was 4. When I was 6, I met Sam. He had been abandoned at the orphanage's entrance, crying non-stop. I handed him over to the caretaker, and from then on, I had a little follower. When he was bullied, I fought for him. When he was sick, I took care of him. But he only stayed at the orphanage for 3 years before his family found him and took him back. We kept in touch, and after graduation, he joined the same company as me and even became my boss. I never expected him to accompany me abroad to develop new projects. With him around, I felt at ease, even though he often seemed unreliable and loved to act. But everyone acknowledged his abilities. In a year, Sam and I traveled the world, negotiating partnerships. I gained experience and saw the world's wonders and beauty. I realized that life could be fulfilling without love. Sam helped me rise from a small employee to a general manager. Though it was exhausting, it was immensely satisfying. I gained confidence and recognition through my work. Sam often joked that he had transformed me from a love-struck girl to a career-driven woman, claiming most of the credit and using it as an excuse to freeload meals at my place. After dinner, he would rest his head on my shoulder, mumbling, "Anna, I need to attend a banquet next week. Will you be my date?" "Sure." Chapter 8. Sam had dressed me so beautifully that when we entered the banquet hall, everyone turned to look. I was no longer the Anna from a year ago, able to confidently handle any situation at the event. Looking around, I saw Jack standing not far away. I had imagined seeing him again, perhaps married to Laura, living happily. But what I saw was a vastly changed Jack. The man who never let anyone force him to drink was now downing glass after glass, lowering his pride. The once stern face now forced a constant smile. When he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise to joy, then his eyes reddened. He stared at me dumbfounded. To me, he was now just a stranger. Sam introduced me to the crowd, paving the way for my future interactions with them. After a while, even with my decent alcohol tolerance, I felt dizzy and had to retreat to the garden to rest. Unexpectedly, I stumbled upon an intimate scene. A middle-aged man was pressing a familiar-sounding woman against the wall. Embarrassed, I quietly retreated, only to have Jack cover my mouth and drag me in another direction. I struggled but was lifted into his arms. "Behave, or I'll kiss you," he threatened. "Jack, we're separated. I can sue you for harassment." He turned a corner, carrying me into a room. I jumped off the bed, running to the door, but he grabbed my wrist, pinning me against the door. His hand encircled my waist as if trying to crush me. Anna, have you really given up on me? I thought you were just throwing a tantrum. I've been waiting for you to come back, but you never did. I know I treated you badly before. I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I nearly rolled my eyes. You despised me to the core. No matter what I did, you always thought I had ulterior motives. On our wedding day, Laura came to see you. I sent someone to tell you, but your grandfather stopped them. Even you couldn't defy your grandfather. How could I? Yet you blamed me for everything. Every time I clumsily tried to please you, you always made it clear that you could never love me. I made you bento boxes, and you threw them in the trash. I spent 3 months' salary on a gift for you, and you called it cheap. When you were sick, I cared for you, and you called me fake. When my heart was full of you, you trampled on it repeatedly. Jack, do you want me to continue? I'm sorry, Anna. I didn't realize how excessive I was. I just got used to our dynamic. But I never felt that way in my heart. Since our separation, I've regretted every day. I hate that I didn't cherish you. Please, give me another chance. Used to it. Your habits made me doubt myself daily. Your habits nearly made me end my life. Seeing me silent, he continued. Are you still bothered by my relationship with Laura? She's just my stepsister. There's nothing between us. I scoffed. The kind of stepsister you can kiss and sleep with. I swear, since our separation, I haven't contacted her. I just wanted to test you, to see if you really loved me. I didn't expect you to separate from me over this. She's married now. There's nothing between us anymore. The more he spoke, the more absurd it sounded. I wondered if this was the same Jack I once knew. There's nothing between us either. Let go. I want to leave. No, Anna. You're mine, only mine. He began touching me inappropriately. Half dressed, I felt nauseous and slapped him. He noticed the scars on my arms, varying in size and depth. What happened to your arms? I struggled to keep my emotions in check. Aren't these your handiwork? What you dismissed as nothing felt like daggers to me. I finally realized I don't love you anymore, yet now you're clinging to me like a dog. The day you threw that party for Laura, I had just been rescued from the hospital. Your friend said you were drunk and needed me, but what did I find? If you had eyes, you'd have seen the bandages on my hand. You cared about Laura's thin clothes but ignored that I was also in a thin shirt. Were you so afraid I'd cling to you that you had to call security to throw me out? If you had a conscience, you'd know there were no taxis in the mountains. I walked all night in heels to reach the city. Thanks to you, I realized you're not worth my effort or love. He wiped my tears, but before he could speak, Sam arrived and started beating him. You're a beast. How dare you bother Anna? Looks like my men didn't handle you properly. Seeing Jack on the ground, clutching his chest and bleeding from the mouth, I pulled Sam away. Another figure stepped in front of Jack. It was Laura, followed by a middle-aged man. I later learned that after our separation, Jack announced his intention to marry Laura. His grandfather was so enraged that he fell ill, declaring that if he married her, he would be disowned. Jack, confident in his abilities, thought he could make it on his own. But those he had offended took their revenge, and with his grandfather's opposition and Sam seizing the opportunity to snatch his resources, he faced constant setbacks. His relationship with Laura became strained. Recently, his grandfather offered to let him return to the family if he left Laura. She then married another wealthy man, someone she had been with since she went abroad. She returned to Jack only to make the rich man jealous. Realizing everything, Jack turned against Laura and sought me out, thinking I was just throwing a tantrum and would always be there for him. But when he tried to contact me, he found I had deleted all his information and left the country. He panicked, mistaking his panic for love. He thought he loved me. But in reality, he was just used to my presence, my flattery, my attempts to please him. I felt sorry for myself for degrading and hurting myself because I loved such a person. Fortunately, I woke up in time. With Sam, I learned to love myself and cherish myself. I've journeyed through life for myself. Chapter 9. Jack's perspective. Anna separated from me, but I thought she would come crawling back soon. I loved seeing her humiliated, it gave me a thrill. But this time, it seemed she wasn't coming back. I always knew she loved me. Even though she tried to hide it, her love always showed in her eyes. After we got married, we had a period of peace. But then, her stepmother and father started coming to me, speaking ill of her. They brainwashed me into thinking Anna had ulterior motives, that she didn't truly love me. They said she was using her love as a guise to ask for money. Gradually, my impression of her worsened, so I constantly belittled her. Seeing her pale and uneasy in front of me, I felt justified. I deliberately ignored her, stood her up on dates, and flaunted my relationship with Laura. Videos of us together circulated, but I didn't delete them. Over time, she became colder toward me, and I wondered if she no longer loved me. When Laura returned, I decided to use her again. I hosted a welcoming party for her at the villa and had someone call Anna over. I had people say nasty things, and her face turned pale. It seemed she still loved me. I was pleased but kept a stern face, asking why she came. Her first words were about Grandpa getting angry. I was furious. As my wife, shouldn't she be the one angry? What did Grandpa have to do with it? I deliberately showed concern for Laura in front of her, watching her face turn as white as paper. Satisfied, I had security throw her out. After the party, I went on a business trip, only to receive separation papers from her. She wanted a separation. I hurried home, but she was gone. Her bag, jewelry, and clothes remained, but her most used suitcase was missing. She had moved out a week ago. I thought she was trying to get my attention. She could never leave me. I had hurt her so many times, and she never left. I thought this time would be the same. But after leaving the civil affairs office, I realized she was serious. Seeing Sam appear, I felt a twinge of panic. But I had seen her diary at the villa. She had loved me for 7 years since college. I felt a mix of disdain and glee. I was even more convinced she separated from me to get my attention. After our separation, I announced my intention to marry Laura. Grandpa was furious, but I didn't care. I wanted to see Anna come back to me. I waited for almost a year, but she never returned. Only then did I realize she might really be gone. How could she just stop loving me after so many years? Women are such liars. At a banquet, I saw her with Sam. She had changed so much, attracting the gaze of all the men present. I was jealous of Sam. She should be mine, only mine. I decided to apologize and confess, but she wouldn't listen. Desperate, I tried to get intimate with her, thinking she would like it. She always did before, like a little seductress. I was satisfied but never showed it, always calling her promiscuous. Until I saw the scars on her arms. So many of them. My heart tightened. She cried, saying they were my doing. Only then did I realize how outrageous my actions had been. I was a piece of trash. I had hurt her without realizing the extent of my cruelty. I deserved to die. No one had ever taught me how to love. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My father had many lovers, and my mother died in a car accident after being kicked out by him. As a child, my father would beat and abuse me, locking me in the basement and having intimate moments with his lovers in front of me. My perception of many things was distorted for a long time. There was a demon inside me that occasionally surfaced. I thought I would make my father pay for everything he did to me. I wanted to take away the women he desired. But Grandpa noticed something was wrong and took me under his wing. With his guidance, I became like a normal person. Until I met Laura in college. I knew she was my stepmother's daughter. Marrying her would infuriate my father. The thought of him losing his temper excited me. But Grandpa found out and sent Laura abroad. I married Anna. Now, I had lost her. She didn't want me anymore. I would never find someone who loved me as much as she did. I repented, hurting myself, hoping she would pity me. But her eyes were always on Sam. It was too late. Every day, I followed news about Anna. Like when she started her own company. How her company grew internationally. When she and Sam got married. When she got pregnant with twins. She was doing well, while I was stuck in the past 3 years. On October 30th, 2030, the headlines were dominated by one news. Jack, heir of the Lee Group, was found dead at home, an apparent tragic end at the age of 31.